This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to the latest episode of Doc and Jock. Maybe it's football therapy this week. We shall see. An interesting day to talk about the Detroit Lions. A lot of people are trying to recover, trying to process what happened against the Bills. 4 more injuries that devastated this football team. Monday was wild online. Everybody was kind of reacting to the news. We'll talk all about it. The Detroit Lions went up against one of the best teams in the AFC. We're humbled, and you recognize it's a tough feeling when you think that you're the best team in the NFL. You're riding in an 11-game winning streak. You're 12-1, and you go up against arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League. And when he played, when Josh Allen performed, and he did his thing, it was nearly impossible to stop. I had a bird's eye view of one of the league's MVP caliber players, and boy, you're going to want to listen to what I think about Josh Allen. It's amazing to think about what a quarterback can accomplish in the National Football League when you have all the tools. It's tough. We'll break it all down. We'll see if Dan Campbell did enough for Jock to bring him back on the bandwagon. We'll see we'll check the pulse of the fan base as well regarding the Detroit Lions. But first, I do want to talk about something a little bit lighter, but was very interesting in the world of trolling. It was interesting in that everyone knows I went to Michigan State. I am a state grad, so there is a pure loyalty. My favorite colors are green and white. Now proud owner of 2 Shinola watches, 1 green, 1 white. I'm very happy, and everything green and white just puts a smile on my face. Now, clearly there is a healthy disrespect and even borderline hatred of the Wolverines, and I feel like it's the same way back, in a kind of way where Michigan calls Michigan State little brother, and they just puff out their chest regarding their dominance, that they won a national title, that they did things that Michigan State has never done. They always boast about that they're the winningest football program in college football history. They're the biggest and baddest on the block, all that kind of stuff. But something happened online that I never thought I would see. And I guess nowadays in the world of trolling, this is probably the biggest thing you can do to spit in the face of Michigan State. Jaden Mangham or Jaden Mangham, or whatever, I disregarded his name, but whatever you think about Michigan State, the stunt that he pulled was crazy. And I have a borderline respect for what he did, but it was crazy in that this is a player that committed to Michigan State, ends up transferring to Michigan. And then, in the end, he's still taking classes at Michigan State, has the privilege of coming back to participate in a Michigan State ceremony. And what he pulled was crazy. Jaden Mangham, this is what he did. He donned the green outfit that you wear to walk across the stage, but donned his football maize and blue number 3 across the stage and took photos and was boasting it online, and the internet went crazy. I sent it to Adam. I said, what do you think of this? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look at this trolling. This is the craziest shit I've ever seen. And there's no way, if you're a Spartan fan, if you're a true fan, to not get riled up at what you saw. He pulled it off. He wins. Like, literally, Michigan State would have to plant the flag and do a bunch of more things to catch up to what he did. So I give him credit. He earned it. But boy, it's been sticking in my craw for 5 days, that the fact that this guy had the balls to don Michigan gear graduating from Michigan State. Now, you see locally, because I know you're aware that Doug Karsh went to Michigan State and is now the broadcaster for Michigan, and he touts Michigan. So that's crazy in and of itself. But to see that, am I crazy to say, man, should I be more adult and just like let it slide? But every time I see it, every time I go back to it, Michigan State fans are up in arms. They trolled him, and he said, you could have said it to my face, but people are just livid at what he did. And I think that's the healthy reaction. If you're like, have a little bit of respect for the fact of know where you are. But man, someone had the balls to do it. Like I kind of want to be that person to try and do it. Like, but at 45 years old, the piss and vinegar is starting to kind of slide. I'm more into what kind of teas we got? Like, can we enjoy a nice movie? Can we enjoy some fireplace time? Like, are you gonna make some hot cocoa? I'm kind of more now the relaxing phase of life, but I still got a little bit of that piss and vinegar of talking shit. But this was crazy. What was your reaction when I sent it to you? I know you at first had to figure out who the hell Jaden Mangham was, but across Michigan State landscape, he is now infamous. And boy, part of me's like, man, he has the chutzpah. He's got a set of cojones as big as Dan Campbell's.
Yeah, let me set the stage for you. So you sent me this picture of this athlete dressed up in a Michigan State gown and cap, and on the top side of the cap, it's basically adorned with Michigan colors, and it's got his name in maize and blue. It's got his number. It looked like he had football gloves on, if I remember correctly. And I was like, I just didn't understand it. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, these things do not compute. Like, it's Michigan State and it's Michigan. I don't get what's going on here. And then had to read the story to really understand that this guy played for Michigan State. He was a transfer to the Michigan football program. He was one of the better cornerbacks for Michigan State. Transferred to Michigan and played the season at Michigan, only to then go back to Michigan State and graduate with his degree. So this whole story was just confusing to me because my brain, whether it's simple or not, my brain cannot understand how you can go to a rival university and then transfer from that university to play football for the other university while still being academically enrolled at the original university that you were at. And so, like, it took a little bit for my brain to process what was actually taking place here. And to me, it seems like a whole lot of energy. Like, all of this is a lot of energy. When you talk about, like, the chutzpah and the piss and vinegar, like, I just don't have it no more. To me, this just seemed like, you're right, epic levels of trolling, but it just seemed like somebody who maybe had a bit of a bad taste in their mouth and was looking for that vindication. I don't have the energy to do all of this. Michigan State's a fantastic university. Michigan is a fantastic university. If you're a fan of one or the other, just pick one and just go there. The fact that this guy was apparently a lifelong Michigan fan, gets accepted to Michigan State, and then only has the ability to transfer after he shows how good he is at Michigan State. To me, it just kind of blows my mind. It's just like, okay, bro. I don't know if I will ever have the level of petty that Jaden Mangham has. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know who this guy was. This past Michigan season has been brutal, and I kind of checked out. But I just don't. Maybe it's just because we're older, right? Like, I'm at a point in my life where I don't sleep a whole lot. I'm lucky if I get 3 hours of sleep at this point in my life. And I just don't have the energy to do this. Like, reading this article and trying to piece together what happened, I was exhausted by the end of it. I was like, what the hell? I was like, are we serious right now? How does this guy have, like you said, the chutzpah to do all of this? Absolutely crazy. Epic levels of trolling. I do believe it's a little bit of childish behavior. Good on him if he's been a lifelong Michigan fan. And look, he got an offer to go to play at Michigan State. Wasn't necessarily happy there. The new coaching regime comes in. He can hits the portal and goes to Michigan, gets to play there for a little bit, and then he gets to graduate with his degree from Michigan State. I mean, good on you, bro. But just seemed like a lot. That's where I'm going to leave it. Just seemed like a whole lot.
It was a whole lot, and everybody's just at Michigan State because you know what you're doing is intentionally going to rile up people. And part of the situation nowadays is that people like that. So have you ever done anything intentional to get attention like that? I know the baby oil stuff was always funny, the bit that you did on the radio. But did you ever do anything that petty to try and troll Ohio State or anything like that? Did you ever roll up in Michigan? Did you ever go to Ohio, rolled up in Michigan gear, trying to rile up people? Like, I do it online quite a bit, so I get that all the time. That's the fun part, but I do it online. It's public. But never in like real life. That's the crazy part is that I think nowadays I'm of the opinion just by seeing how people act nowadays, I'd never wear Michigan State gear in Ann Arbor. I don't wear like I try. I would say that if I go to a Lions game as a fan, I'm not going to wear Lions colors because people are crazy out there. Like you see people getting into fights online all the time. You see the craziness that people say. Like you hear how Ohio State treats Michigan fans and the craziness that ensues. Like I don't want nobody talking no junk to me. So I'm more like I'm going to enjoy sports more discreetly. But this is such an overt like ability to be able to do that. I'm surprised nobody like tried to like knock it off. Like just walk up to him and just have someone film it where they just knock it off and be like, kind of like Jack Sawyer of Ohio State, where he gets all pissed on the football field and he's like, I'm not going to see anybody plant a flag in our building. Are you effing crazy? And he's trying, and you can see him in football mode. Like, I'm surprised he just was able to do that. But maybe Michigan State has more maturity in class and they let him do that. But man, that was crazy. It stuck in my craw. And like I said, we give him respect for trying it, for doing it, for being able to execute it, riled up the Michigan State fan base, and you hope that Michigan State can get a monicum of comeback next year because the recruiting classes are pretty nice. Michigan did well. Michigan State did okay. They're starting to pick up the pace with obviously working in the trenches to try and repair the damage that was done from the previous regime in the transfer portal. But man, the rivalry, in my opinion, has hit a new crescendo, and Jaden Mangham, your name will forever be associated with Michigan State lore, and maybe, you never know, maybe that'll be the onus, one of the things that people will look to as to say, hey, look, this is what Michigan is about. This is what they try and do. They brag to the highest degree, and everything's great. Everything they do is great. Everything they touch is great. And now hopefully Michigan State can scratch and claw and build their football program to be on that level and to be more respected. Like, I think you're right. Your passion for Michigan diminished a little bit this year with not having a quarterback mind for Michigan State, with having so many injuries in a football team that kind of didn't get better as the season progressed, which was kind of unfortunate. And a quarterback that was learning on the job, and a quarterback that had far too many interceptions. So let's hope next year college football is a little bit better for both schools, because
real quick, what does retribution look like? So if this strikes at the core and the heart of you, a Michigan State fan, what does retribution look like? Because I can't foresee a Michigan player transferring to Michigan State to only go back and graduate and do something similar. I just don't foresee that happening.
No.
I to be honest with you, I would never foresee this happening, but it did. How do you enact revenge? You're talking about getting retribution here. What does that look like? Does that come on the field? Does that come, I don't know, with fans going back and forth? Does that go with basically Michigan doing something silly and you getting to point the finger and laugh at Michigan? What does that look like to you?
No, to me it's on the field. First and foremost, I think that Michigan State on the field has the biggest win of all time with trouble with the snap. That was the craziest football victory of all time. And unfortunately, though, Michigan now is on par with one of the biggest upsets in Big Ten history by beating Ohio State. So they get a big-time win, and they won the national title. So they kind of have done a lot of good things. But for Michigan State, the biggest retribution is winning, is beating Michigan on the field, building a program, basically kind of turning it like, it may not happen with Jonathan Smith, but one day kind of turning into an Alabama. You know what I mean? Where you're like Ohio State, where you get your Ryan Day, you get your guy, like Mark D'Antonio-esque, where... But I will say, of the last 17 games, Michigan State has won 10. Now, in the recent past, Michigan is, making it more of a rivalry. But over the long term, Michigan State has had that nice run that they had with D'Antonio. But they peaked when they got to the college football playoff. They got spanked by Alabama, and that was a wrap. The crescendo was winning the Rose Bowl and having that dream season capped off by a Rose Bowl win. That was awesome. But they never took it to, like, they got to the dance, they opened the door, and then when they got to the club, they weren't able to kind of sustain it. They were new money for a week, and then they overspent, and then they have to go back to the dive bar, and it's a real dive bar right now. So we're back on the mend. We're back saving money and trying to build a program that can compete with Michigan and their funds, because Michigan, not only, it sucks too, because now in the money game, Michigan has you got a guy that is literally reliant upon his support, who says, hey, I kind of want you to give money to Michigan. And he's like, yeah, no doubt about it. Whatever you say, darling. And it's always undefeated. And you got to be kidding me that a staunch female Michigan supporter got her super uber billionaire rich guy that's the founder of Oracle to be able to fund Michigan athletics at the highest level. That's crazy. That's just legit crazy. And so maybe we'll never
live in
get
a
there.
weird world, man. I never thought sports would be like this ever in my life.
I did. It's competitive. It's SEC. Whenever you get, I mean, because it's basically what happened illegally all the time. You know, it was the money man.
Sure.
That's what was going on. But there was never anybody that had the balls to try and slip people money at Michigan State. They always do it at Alabama and allegedly down in the SEC. That's where the money would transfer. You could tell. You know, I think the funniest thing ever was when you would see Reggie Bush roll around in a they didn't hide it anymore.
No.
And the best was when podcasts took off. Cause the best was when the story started flowing, and you'd have Reggie Bush and all the people start telling stories like 18 years later, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I had $100,000. Like, oh yeah, like this guy gave me a couple $100,000 and I was rolling and I was happy. And you're like, yeah, no doubt. We all knew that. We saw you rolling with your caddy on campus. Like you could have hit it a little bit better, but look, you can't. New money is always flaunted. Nowadays, it's crazy to see like Shedeur Sanders wearing a $250,000 watch at the Heisman ceremony there. So it's just a little bit crazy to think about where it's going to go in the next 5 years with the money. Like, man, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy to see how the money is going to change people and make people flaunt a little bit sooner. 18 to 22-year-olds wearing their mink furs and their caddies down at Michigan State will be fun to see moving forward. We'll see. We'll see if the money starts to flow into the Big Ten at the rate Bryce Underwood got paid. Let's see if anybody else starts to collect and if Michigan State can at least put together a good football team to compete. At least next year, the game is in East Lansing. You got to win it. You got to win it. And hopefully you win it in an epic fashion to start the conversation to get revenge. So we'll see if Jonathan Smith can start to plant his flag in this rivalry, because right now Sharon Moore kind of has the benefit of not starting on third base like Ryan Day, but he started on second. Like, you got trained by Jim Harbaugh. You got the benefit of having a lot of good players and a good class that you got to roll with. Now it's on him to recruit at the highest levels. Now switching gears and kind of talking about, we're recording this the day after the saddest day, I think, in Lions 2024 season in history, because I think on Monday, the fan base of Detroit was it was post-mortem. It was sad. It was really depressed. People were really online just sharing their disdain and frustration, their sadness. And I think it was capped off by hearing the news that David Montgomery now shredded his MCL and he needs surgery. Aleem McNeil, you were battered already going into the Bills game. And then you come out of that game with Khalil Dorsey having to be carted off with a bad injury. You get Carlton Davis' jaw is broken, fractured. He's going to be out for 6 weeks, maybe for the season. Aleem McNeil tears his ACL. And then David Montgomery news on Monday. So it was horrible. It was, and I said on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, look, this is kind of the day where everybody's going to be sad and call out their frustration and fears that the season's over. But I look at it like 24 hours later, Dan Campbell did a good job of kind of repairing and stopping the tears a little bit by his rah-rah speech on the ticket. But let's just start with the game. The Bills were able right away to punch the Lions in the mouth, and it was alarming. Not because the Lions lost. It happens. It's the Bills team. They're a good football team, one of the best. They have a league MVP caliber quarterback. But what was alarming was that Dan Campbell, after the game, said that he didn't feel like his team had the same juice as the Bills. Like, it's a Super Bowl matchup. And that's what I was yelling about with the Michigan State-Michigan game, is that Michigan State didn't bring their A game. And unfortunately, the Lions, whether it be due to injury or whatever they had going on, they were able to go toe-to-toe offensively, but in regards to in totality, there was never really a point where you felt like, there's never really a point where you felt like the Lions could overtake the Bills once the Bills got out to that lead. And I thought that was disappointing that the Lions didn't have the same mindset and execution style early in that game, because that was where it was needed to be.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to push back on you a little bit. I don't think the Detroit Lions ever really got up off the mat after they did get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
I think that offense wasn't able to go toe-to-toe with the Bills, and that was the biggest letdown. That's where this game was won and lost. The Bills come out, and they immediately put 7 on the board. You get the ball back, you go 3 and out. Bills get the ball back, they put 7 more on the board. You get the ball, and you go 3 and out. And you just didn't go 3 and out. You looked ugly going 3 and out. It took you a little bit to get your feet. It was like being in a fight with Mike Tyson, where Mike Tyson hits you with the right hook and then hits you with a jab. And now you're in the corner, and you're trying to put 2 and 2 together and pick yourself up off the mat. And it took them to a 9 count to get back to their feet. They come back out, and then Mike Tyson punches them again, only for you to fall back down into the corner. And again, it takes you to a standing 9 count to get back up. And once they kind of got their feet and they got jostled around a little bit, yeah, they got engaged and they were able to go. But this game was really won and lost in those first 2 offensive possessions because your offense didn't do anything. We've talked about this. The way this team is constructed right now, it has to be all offense. It has to be all the time. Your defense is so battered. And this game did not help that. This game didn't help it at all. You know, you go through the injury report, and it's just like, guy's dead. This dude's dead. This dude's dead. It's like guys are banged up all over the place, and it's been this way basically since the beginning of the year. You know, you start the season, Aiden Hutchinson, dead. Aleem McNeil, now dead. Kyle Pecco, dead. Marcus Davenport, I don't really think we expected a whole bunch from him, but he's dead. John Kaminsky, never started the season, dead. Makai Wingo, this is a guy that you were hoping to get some run from, dead. David Batta, dead. Alex Anzalone, kind of dead. Derek Barnes, dead. Jalen Reeves-Maben, dead. Malcolm Rodriguez, dead. Carlton Davis, fractured jaw, dead. You know, Khalil Dorsey, ankle screwed on backwards, dead. Iffy, dead. You know, you've got guys up and down this roster that are all just dead. I've never seen a team, especially on defense, be this battered, this bruised, and this banged up and still be this good. And it's just kind of like a matter of time. It feels like that bow is going to break and the floodgates are going to open. And I kind of feel like we're now here after this game. And specifically in this game, a lot of that pressure fell on your offense. And your offense misfired twice, shooting yourselves in the foot. And then you kind of continue as this game goes along. Amon-Ra St. Brown, uncharacteristically, fumbles the ball, shoots yourself in the foot. You had opportunities to win this game. And this game was nowhere near as close as the score indicates. It was a 6-point game. Nowhere near was it that close. You can score a lot of points. You could chew up a lot of yards when they're playing prevent defense, and you're just able to get the ball down the field. This game was never that close. You shot yourself in the foot repeatedly on offense, and that's what cost you this game. The offense was never able to arise to the occasion. Even with losing the pieces on defense, your defense couldn't stop anybody this day. There was a point where they're like, over 1,000 yards of offense has been accumulated today, and I was like, not a lick of defense has been played by either team. Offensively, you lost this game. It was those first two possessions that the offense had that buried this team, and they were never able to get out from underneath that. And I think if you look at that, you need to be nervous because you've now suffered additional losses. You lost Aleem McNeil, who is your run stuffer. He is the heartbeat. He is the ticking time bomb on that defensive front that helps you contain the run, helps you up front, helps you get that push. Carlton Davis has been your best cornerback. He's dead now too. You lost another cornerback in Khalil Dorsey. You know, you're very thin now in your secondary. You're thin up front because you lost Aiden Hutchinson, you lost Aleem McNeil. And then you have to put all this pressure on the offense, and they're not able to get the job done in what looks to be a Super Bowl matchup. You should be nervous because if that's how the offense is going to perform, now you take out David Montgomery, who is a very key part of that offense. You got to be scared because you just don't have the bullets. You don't have the remaining ammunition to go head-to-head, toe-to-toe with elite teams. The Buffalo Bills are an elite team. You are an elite team. But the thing is, you're an elite team that is now firing on magazine number 6, and you're just running out of ammunition at this point because you're just throwing bodies at a blender, and they're just getting chewed up and spit out, and you're running out of bodies, which are your bullets, and you're just getting low on ammunition right now. So you should be nervous. What's your panic level right now? Because, again, football's a game of attrition, and you are just going through it right now. 3 players lost again on defense, and then you lose a key cog on offense. you got to be nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's your point. At the start of the fourth quarter, the game was within 10. And yeah, you could argue that Josh Allen still would have kept scoring, but Dan Campbell influenced that. So we'll talk about that later. But yeah, the injuries are the biggest story from this game. I mean, it's the clearest thing when you look at it from the perspective of you lose Carlton Davis, that's a big loss. You lose a special teams ace, and that's a big loss in a situation in which you have it. You have a cornerback that's a veteran that's teaching a great player in Terry and Arnold, but now you lose that. So Terry and Arnold is your number one right now. That's a little bit tough. So it's going to be a tough situation for the defense. And then Ali McNeil is the last guy you could afford to lose, man. That was tough. He's a guy that helps your run game. Torn ACL, that means probably the start of next year could potentially be in jeopardy. So it's going to be tough when we look at coming back. I mean, look, the Lions can still compete in the 3 games in the regular season, but everybody's always focused on the Super Bowl. So my panic level is, it's disappointed. It's not panic. It's that because I had the ceiling for them, as a pessimistic fan of the Lions, the ceiling I put for the Lions was, God wants me to go watch the Lions lose a Super Bowl because I need that pain, as well emotionally to see them lose a Super Bowl. So I've been bracing myself all year like, they're going to lose a Super Bowl. They're going to lose. But once Aiden got off to the great start, hope started to build. And I think that was what was encapsulated in my tweet at Detroit Podcast on Monday was what sucks, is that unequivocally, Brad Holmes built a Super Bowl winner. Mm-hmm. If everybody stayed healthy, this was a 19-1 Super Bowl winner, a la Dallas Cowboys whooping on the Bills. Like you would have been crowned. There would have been a ceremony. You would have waltzed through and dominated the Chiefs, dominated the Bills. You would have went in and it would have been a coronation of a football team. But it feels like you got something ripped out of your hands that you had. And that's what hurts, is that they were close. But there's still an opportunity to get there. There's still an opportunity to win it. But right now, what stinks is clearly, as constructed, maybe Alex Anzalone changes the dynamic, John Kaminsky, maybe these young cats evolve and the replacements are better. But right now, the Bills are better than you. And I don't want to see the Bills ever again because what they did this year was crazy. What they did to the Lions was crazy. I just thought that despite Josh Allen being a wrecking ball and a wrecking machine and just the man, the Lions were within 10, Were you mad that Dan Campbell tried that onside kick, knowing that the percentage is so bad, 7%, and knowing that you have to declare it? There's no element of surprise. Mm-hmm. The coverage was bad, and in the end, it ended up being a complete disaster because you're down 10. You had a little momentum by scoring that touchdown. You give up the return as well. They score on the next play. You're down 17, and basically the game was over. I think you popped the balloon right there. There, you could argue Dan Campbell overcoached and really hurt his team again because let the defense fail. Yeah, they've been failing all game, but maybe they just, clamp down and, the next drive when they're down 10, they get a field goal. And then the Lions offense picks up. I think that Dan Campbell expedited the thing with the ultimate gamble. And I just feel like, look, in the end, you probably were going to end up losing all your money at the table anyway, but you could have at least extended the play at the table by another 2 hours if you didn't just say, fuck it. At the end of the night when you're gambling, you're just bored and your significant other's nagging, I want to go home. And you're like, I'm just betting 5. You win some, lose some, up a couple hundred, down a couple hundred, and then you're just like, fuck it, and you just drop all the chips in the middle of the table. Let's go, one hand. And you're like, no, that's not the strategy. The strategy is chip away. Maybe you take a loss. Maybe you take, the variance and you ended up losing by 3 or whatever happens. But I think Dan Campbell and his decision to go for it for the onside kick, knowing that it's such a hard thing to execute, I thought that was also costly. And not the sole reason. The porous defense was the reason that you didn't execute your number one goal of stopping Josh Allen. But I thought that the onside kick decision partly contributed to the Lions losing.
Yeah, I understand where Dan Campbell was coming from, right? He's trying to be aggressive and he's trying to gain another possession because time is now against you and you're down 10 points and your defense hasn't been able to stop them all day long. So you're trying to get the ball back. I think with the new rules, with the having to declare the onside kick, it completely ruins the element of surprise and really takes out a key piece of the game. I kind of hate it. And this is an example where I think these new rules, you just kind of overthink them sometimes, and you kind of don't do the game a service. I feel like if the Detroit Lions were able to execute that and you didn't have to declare it, I think that kind of creates a pivotal moment where if they do get the ball back, next thing you know, you're back in this fight. Now, you don't execute it. And that's always the coin flip with these Dan Campbell decisions, right? Sometimes it works, and when it works, it's great. And sometimes it doesn't, and when it doesn't, next thing you know, they got the ball down at the 3-yard line, and they're basically going and score, and now they're up by 17 instead of 10. So I do think the aggression kind of did add to them losing this game. But that being said, the big underlying factor is this defense, and it's this beat-up defense that is just taking these body blows, and you just keep losing guys. And again, you lose Aleem McNeil in this game, and their run game was off to the races. You lose Carlton Davis, and their pass game was off to the races. You're not able to withstand what's happening inside these games, especially against these elite teams. So, yes, while I agree with you, I don't think Dan Campbell's aggression early in the fourth quarter helped this team at all. I think the big problem is the injuries to the defense, which I said out loud to my wife. I was like, it just kind of feels like this team's cursed, like you talked about it. You've been preparing yourself mentally to go to cover this team for a Super Bowl that they're going to lose. As a Lions fan, you're so beat up, and you're so you got so much PTSD. There's so much trauma that you've endured that you yourself, in the best season of the Lions that you've ever witnessed, you are preparing yourself for this team to go to a Super Bowl and lose the Super Bowl.
Yep.
This team, like you said, give kudos to Brett Holmes. He built the best team in the NFL. This is the best team in the NFL.
Yep.
If you look at it on paper and you look at what they do on the field, this is the best team in the NFL. No other team has been able to lose this many guys. I think they're up to like 25, maybe 28 guys are on air right now. It's crazy. No team has been able to withstand that and still be able to win. This team is still in the driver's seat. They are still in first place in the NFC. They are still playing in the best division in football, and they are still in a race to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But still, they are losing guys left and right. And to me, man, it does feel like like it's cursed. Like, you can't have anything nice. The football gods won't allow you to have anything nice. Last year might have been the opportunity. You losing to the San Francisco 49ers and the way you lost with footballs bouncing off of dudes' heads might have been the one opportunity you have. Man. This Super Bowl window may be closing because the Super Bowl, the football gods were like, look, last year was your past. This year, you guys are a great team. Guess what? Ain't happening. You're losing everybody. Everybody is dying on this roster, and there's not a whole lot else you can do. You were part of I don't remember if it was like George Lopez or whatever. You were part of something trying to annex the curse of the Detroit Lions at one time. Does it still feel like this team is cursed? I mean, this team has gone through and they have scrubbed things that have just held them back. They have scrubbed some of the curses and some of the weird plays that have just lay in the lore of the Detroit Lions, but still, it's like they can't quite get out of this funk, this shadow, this inability to advance to that higher ground to where they should be a Super Bowl winning team. And it might be part of the Bobby Lane curse. It might be part of a Barry Sanders curse. It might be part of a Calvin Johnson curse. It might be just the football gods hate Detroit. I don't even know. But does it feel like they're still cursed to you, especially with losing all of these guys?
And then you're 12-2, and that's not enough to win the division and clinch the number 1 seed. Normally, that would be the case at this point. But nope, the Eagles are 12-2, and the Vikings are 12-2. And you're like, get the hell out of here. Are you serious right now? That 12 wins is not enough at this point in the season. 12 wins by week 16, and it's not enough. It's great. It's crazy. It is literally crazy that the Lions have to scratch and claw to earn the number 1 seed. That's how sick that this is, and that's why you hope that they can still earn the number one seed. The win against the Packers was helpful because it gives you a really good chance of being number one or number two. But there's still a chance the Vikings could catch the Lions for the number one seed. You hope that the Lions still have enough to be able to withstand all these injuries. You hope that they don't have a letdown on the road against the Bears. But yeah, it does feel like there's something crazy that's external that's going on. These injuries, stay tuned. We're going to try to effort at Lions on SI some former NFL strength and conditioning coaches to try and figure out what the hell is going on with these injuries, because it's crazy. Over 20 is not just bad luck, cuz over 20 guys on IR when the nearest other team is like 8 or 9, that's significant. That's not being, ahead of the curve. That's something going on. And it feels like that's where I think people, they block out the fact that in these next 3 games, the Lions could get even more hurt. Who's next? So everyone's like, yeah, they hear Dan Campbell's speech and they're like, yeah, we're going to get back at it. You got to remember that, yeah, they could get guys back, but who's going to go by the wayside? Like, I never would have thought that Ali McNeil would get hurt or Carlton Davis. You just got to watch these games now on pins and needles that you hope that you survive Soldier Field. And that field is not the best on snow with a tough field, banging your head on the ground with the force that these guys are going at it with. I'm nervous watching to see the attrition rate is terrible. So it's bad luck. That's the starting point. Are they cursed? I mean, you hope that you don't face the Bills again in the Super Bowl because the vantage point that I had, Josh Allen made it look easy. He made the game look easy. He effortlessly moved through the offensive line. He got through Detroit's defensive line easily, and that's where it stinks because that's the kind of quarterback we all want. A quarterback in his 6th, 7th year that's figured stuff out, is athletic, is mobile. Josh Allen is the quarterback that we all dream about, and there's only one of them, and we don't got him. Now, Jared Goff is pretty good. He's a wily veteran. He's talented. He's super, very smart, hardworking. But in terms of pure talent, Josh Allen's the supreme package. Lamar Jackson, the supreme package. Now, are they going to be able to take the next step in their career in the postseason? Allen's got to get over the hump with the Chiefs, but they just were able to. They beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Can they do it in the postseason? Now Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. So everybody wanted to see what was going on with the MVP race, and it went to Josh Allen. He was effortless. He was throwing the football, moving the ball. He was able to direct the offense, looked in complete control, has that aura, and real fast, too. He shunned me real fast. I went up to him. It was cool, too, because I got to see him get changed, and it was just basically me, him, another reporter, and a couple, 2 more guys, and maybe some Bill staff. So I went up to him, and I said, hey, I'm Detroit Media. Went up to him, big smile. Hey, I'm Detroit Media. Can I just ask you one question? Looks at me. He eyes me. So he recognized, I don't know this guy. He eyes me up and down, has to look down on me, and goes, I already did the podium. And just went back to his business and got dressed. I was like, all right, no problem. And then I walked out of the locker room because I don't typically go into the road locker room. We only got one credential, that's me. And so I typically spend all the time in the Lions locker room. But it was cool to see. I wanted to see Keon Coleman, but I got big time by Josh Allen. It was funny as hell. But hey, I have no qualms or no fear to try and at least ask. So that was cool. Got to meet him. At least he knows of me. And stared at me for a whole quick 3 seconds. And he's like, I'm not giving this guy. My question was simply going to be, man, you played in a Super Bowl preview kind of caliber game. What was it like? I mean, I'm pretty sure he's asked it already, but it would have been cool if he would have just given me 2 minutes or just given me a stupid answer. But in the end, he was awesome. And I do think he's Super Bowl caliber. If you give him a reasonable defense and a nice offense, that guy's got it. He's got it. And he's athletic. He's built. He's very bright. And I think he's put it together where he's not taking the unnecessary risk if he doesn't have to. Now, you got to be able to do that in the postseason. Because we got to, put it on the table. Do you think the Super Bowl dreams are over this year? I mean, it's tough. I mean, you got to be really fanatic to, even if Dan Campbell is ranting and cussing on the radio, it's a great speech. And I get it. I love, clearly everyone knew it was coming. He cuts the promo. But in the end, football is not won by speeches. You have to have talent. Remember, guys, in 2021, Dan Campbell was the same rah-rah guy giving the speeches, and they won 3 games. What changed? They got more first round picks. They added talent. The talent started to develop. You added more. You added Jamison Williams. You added Jahmyr Gibbs. You added Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta. You added, and talent. In the end, speeches don't win titles. Players do. So I do think that this year's Super Bowl dream ended, but it could be the rocket fuel with Aiden Hutchinson and who you bring opposite of him next year. I don't think the window's closed, but I do think that this year's chances, I think, have been diminished.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. I think this year's chances, that window is now shut. You just can't. I think they have a chance to win the division. I think they have a chance to be the number 1 seed. I just don't think they have enough to play elite teams and get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. I think that window has now closed. Now, there are still other things on the table that they've got goals for that they can still obtain, and I think are very much obtainable. But winning the Super Bowl and getting to the Super Bowl, I just don't see it. I don't see you being able to go up against a Philadelphia team and being able to get that win. I don't think you're going to be able to go up against a team like Minnesota for the third time around. Minnesota looks great right now. And look, they're relatively healthy. I don't think you've got the guns, the firepower to sit there and beat them for a third time, because I'm anticipating you beating them the second time when the division's on the line. If you've got to face Green Bay's still relatively healthy. I don't know if you get by them. The Bucs look like they're going to make the playoffs. They beat you earlier this year, and you weren't able to keep up with them. So I just don't see this being a long playoff run. I think if you can get the first number, if you can get the number 1 seed, I think the week off will help, and you might be able to get by that first game. But I think when you get to that second game, you're probably going to get popped, and just because the injuries just start to mount and they just start to catch up to you. I do think that I think last season you were ahead of schedule, and Brad Holmes got to see what you really needed. He went out and he added a lot of stuff, and he got this team much better. And I don't think anybody in the league, if everybody stayed healthy, or if this team was remotely healthy, not even everybody, just remotely healthy, I don't think anybody was standing a chance against you. I think you had a chance to go 16-1, really and truly, and then get into the playoffs and just run your way right to the Super Bowl. I think this gives Brad Holmes a renewed fire. He comes back next season, and he's able to make the adjustments that have to be made, and he's able to get this team back to where they need to be. I just think right now it's just a little bit too much, man. There's too many losses. You can't lose this many guys and still be as competitive of a team as you need to be to make it to the Super Bowl and to do what you have to do in order to win a Super Bowl. There's just too much. And look, you've got 3 wins. These are very winnable games. If you've listened to Dan Campbell, you've listened to Jared Goff. They both say, look, the sky's not falling. Everything's okay. We're just going to put our head down and we're going to go back to doing business. Well, business starts this week when you take on the Bears. Do they bounce back, and do they get a big divisional win? These divisional wins are now getting important because Minnesota is so damn good right now, and you're going to have to face them at the very end of the season. Do they get the win against the Bears this week and bounce back after a pretty devastating loss, not just for the records, but because of all of the body blows and all of the people you lost this week or past week?
They do. They bounce back. The Lions haven't lost back-to-back games since 2022. I think it's going to be a challenge because they know that they have to get this division win, so it's very imperative that they get this win. I think it's going to be a knockout, drag-out contest, but the Lions are better than the Bears, and you just hope that the defensive line rebounds, the replacements are put in a good position, but I do think the effort level will be there, and the Lions just have more talent. I think that the Bears, are in that mindset of looking out Michigan Avenue, and they're looking to get on their vacation train. I think you can learn a lot from the Vikings being able to defeat the Bears. I don't think that the Bears are going to score a lot of points, and I think the Lions are going to be able to get this victory, and that's how we're going to take it now. 1 week at a time, cuz. 1 week at a time, one game at a time. And if you win out, you put yourself in a great position to be able to earn the number 1 seed and have an opportunity to get to this postseason. You don't want to go on the road. You want to play as many games at Ford Field as possible. And remember, too, that even though David Montgomery's out, you have Jahmyr Gibbs and you have Craig Reynolds. I think you just rely on Gibbs a little bit more. You can mix in Vaki as well. So I think that replacing the tough runs will be tough, but it's going to be now even more imperative that the offensive line opens up holes and you're able to also take advantage now. You lean more on J-Mo and Sam Laporta. So you still have enough offensively to get the job done. I do think that they're going to have to look at a lot of options for that defensive line. Maybe you look at a Quentin Bohanna on someone's practice squad, or you look at other options as well on your practice squad. But you got to get creative with this defense. You got to find ways to get home and pressure and contain and do a lot better, because not every team features a Josh Allen, thankfully. And Caleb Williams is a rookie who's learning things, and you can take advantage. So I do think they get back on track. They quiet the noise a little bit. But yeah, I do think that realistically, Doc and Jock are not going to sit here and just be like everybody else that's a fan and can't handle it. Yeah, it's okay to say that. You know what? It might not have been this year. It might not have been the year. I mean, when you lose Aiden Hutchinson, something's up. And when you lose 20 guys to IR, something's up. And guess what? If we're wrong, we'll have the most joy. Adam and I will be two of the most surprised, joyous people, because we had doubt. And I just think psychologically it's better, because if you're of the opinion, oh, it's all good, then if it doesn't happen, I think you're in the camp that's going to be more devastated, and it's going to hurt more. Whereas I think Adam and I are hurting now a little bit. We're kind of getting to the point where we can accept it faster. And I think that psychologically speaking, it's better to have lower expectations and then to get something over-delivered than it is to overpromise and not have the ability to deliver, in my mind. And as a psychological expert, I think that's the best way to be. Be realistic, enjoy the games, but realize that it's a very uphill climb. And Dan Campbell can cuss on the radio as much as possible. You know, he could do it freely on podcasts, but luckily streaming nowadays makes it so that you can hear it, which is really cool. YouTube and Twitch have to air it because it's live. So you can go check it out. It's kind of funny as you see the radio guys having to be professional and push that button multiple times as Dan Campbell is cursing. But I do think that it's going to be it's still a fun season, a lot of wins, but at the same token, it'll be a fun opportunity for this Detroit Lions football team to get back on track. So we'll see. Adam and I will be here for the ride all along the way as the Lions finish up the season. 3 games left, and then we'll see what's going to happen in the postseason. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSJRLZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Check out our podcast. A lot of good work, a lot of good stuff going on. Interviews, Detroit Lions content, Michigan Wolverines content, wrestling. A lot of good stuff happening at Detroit Sports Podcast. And thank you for finding us. You can find it everywhere. Odyssey, iTunes. You can find it at the Apple Store, Google Play. Everywhere that you listen to podcasts, just type in Detroit Sports Podcast. 3 great words, and our content will find you. Fresh episodes very regularly during the week. Because tough week, but a good week. And it's always good to talk to you. And I look forward to talking to you next week on the latest episode of Doc and Jock.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.